Well, hello. Welcome to Association Transformation. Trying to take a calmer, more welcoming tone. Andrew Chamberlain, Elevated. Thank you for joining us. Welcome.
Well, it's good of you to be. I mean, you see, I'm sitting in the calming surrounds of this hotel room that
That
I'm
it looks
in,
like a
and
very beige space. It looks
it
very
is
calming.
well, yeah, it's completely beige. Actually, yeah, when I walked in, it was nighttime, so I didn't realize that how zen this room is.
Yes, I'm sure. I'm sure it's bringing you all the peace you need, but you did bring one of your new shirts. This is very nice. Appreciate it. Very good job. Very good job. We put on our best for Matty. We put on our best for Matty.
Always.
I'm excited to have him, long-term podcast friend, LinkedIn connection. I mean, Matty, we haven't met in real life, but I feel like I've known you for a really long time. Matty Rubenstein, longtime association executive, seasoned consultant, trusted advisor to nonprofits around the globe. How are you, sir? Welcome.
Hi, Elisa. Thanks for having me on. Hi, Andrew.
How are you, mate? You all right?
Doing okay in my calming space over here?
That's right. You're in a beige, white, brown space. This is very nice. So I feel the
Yeah.
most cluttered. So again, I will seek to calm. But today the topic we want to chat about today isn't necessarily calming. It's kind of it's a point of disruption, a point of maybe juxtaposition as associations find themselves at an inflection point. We have for so long been told that associations are here for certain purposes and that we measure our success and we define our need for being around these kind of three pillars. And I love that Maddie's kind of put this on its head and wants to blow this up a little bit. Tell me about your thoughts on the traditional three pillars around which associations are built. Wait, let's quiz. Andrew, do you know what the three pillars are? That's
Uh,
a no. That face is a
no,
no.
I do know, but I'm not going to spoil it. I don't want to spoil it for anybody.
So will you at least do the drum roll then?
I will. I will add it into the effects afterwards.
You're such a liar. All right, Maddie, just ignore him. Ignore him. Where did you kind of come upon the three pillars and how did it shape your experience as an association executive?
So the idea of the three pillars is something just came to me throughout my 15 years in the association world, that really we can really boil down everything that we do into three, and I'll say maybe four pillars, and I'll explain what the fourth one is in a moment. So the first pillar, even today, when associations are forming, I worked with an association that was still in its growth state. It wasn't like the accountancy and medicine. It's still growing, and they one of the first things that people talked about was this feeling of isolation. There was experts all around the world, and they felt isolated in what they were doing. So the first one I talk about is community. Is people wanted to talk to other people in the community. So the second one is the broadest one that we have, which is called knowledge. And knowledge encompasses everything from web content to education, anything that's knowledge sharing.
Yeah.
And the final one is convening. And those if you look at, I would say 99% of what we do, they fit into those three, and perhaps the fourth. And the fourth one is part of professionalization, and that's where we have certification, and that's really where we start to impact the professional space that we're part of.
Yeah. Well,
And
can I chime in? I don't, all the associations that you've worked with as a consultant or as a staff member, it's amazing how applicable those pillars are, irrespective of your industry, of whether you're a 501c3, a 501c6, you're working with teachers, doctors, scientists, you're a chamber of commerce, you're, whatever it may be. And those pillars seem so, I guess, relevant and obvious, but at the same time, so
Stagnant.
blah. blah. I mean,
Well,
is
it feels a lot like, yeah, they're fundamental, foundational, but it
yeah,
also strikes me that there's often very little arguably perceived room for invention
yeah,
and innovation and creativity in that space,
yeah,
which is what I don't hear. I don't hear that in those
right.
3-4 pillars.
Well,
I
and
don't know, Matty.
the commonality amongst them is they're all aggregating services. The
Yeah,
association
yeah.
isn't necessarily, to your point, Andrew, creating anything. It's simply aggregating and bringing forth
Good point.
it's a multiplier. The association is a multiplier of people, of knowledge, of coming together. And I'm excited to hear how this is blowing up. So I'll be quiet, Matty. You go ahead.
So I mean, there's something I've developed during my time as well, which is something I call narrative analysis. And I think in a lot of cases we are very we very much look at what we do, and we put key performance indicators around them, and we say, right, well, the indicator is low, the indicator is high, and we make adjustments, and we keep on doing what we've been doing. But if you go back and you start looking at the story, and everybody talks in stories today, everything's stories, and you know what, analysis is stories too. You can actually ask people, why, what do you do, what are you proud of, how did you get here, why did you form? And this is where you discover that most associations do what they do because of history. Because if you look back at what associations are, they're really private networks. Because if you go back 30, 40, 50 years, there was no online presence, and there was no connectivity. And people wanted to learn, and people wanted to teach. And the only way they could do it was bringing very narrow groups of people together. And those people were very much like themselves, and they would create community, would create the community network, which often was a telephone list. That was community. And they were able to phone one another or write each other letters. They were able to publish a monthly newsletter, or perhaps have seminars where they met. And usually once a year, they would have where people actually got together in person. And that's where this comes from. And how did you get access to this? You paid an entrance fee, which is called membership. And that then funded everything. Yeah. And that pervades everything that we do today. And the reason is, and to take in what Andrew said, he just said it a bit earlier than I wanted to, which is it's very restrictive, because what we do is we take membership and we turn it into a silo. And the silo is unbreakable. And then we turn knowledge into an unbreakable silo, or maybe 2 unbreakable silos. And we take conferencing and we turn that into another silo. And the problem with it is they become self-defining. And if you want to innovate, you can only innovate within a silo. And that's where all the questions come. Because if you look at our responses to the current situations that we find ourselves in, we see ourselves doubling down on membership drives. Membership drives are the most expensive way to earn money. You can't find a more expensive way for an association to gain revenue. We've taken on this thing called non-dues revenue. If anybody came from for-profits and we say, what the heck is non-dues revenue? It's just revenue. Everything's just revenue. And if it happens to be dues revenue, it's dues revenue. But what's non-dues revenue mean? And a lot of people are looking towards AI as it's going to solve everything. We've started to look more sophisticated ways of getting sponsorship. But generally, as associations, our interaction with our ecosystem is to.
Well, I'll let you finish, Matty, and then I've got a question. Yeah, no, and I was just flagging that I had a question. That's all.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, gosh.
You're going to be able to edit that together.
Nah, don't worry about that. We don't edit.
Okay.
Everyone
Okay.
can see that I'm being.
No, all of our wrinkles and warts, and yeah, it's us. This is it.
Fine.
Right
Okay.
now.
So when we look about our interaction with our ecosystem, it tends to be really one of, we get money from our members and we try and sell our knowledge and our convening and our three pillars to our members. And we have this belief that our interaction with industry is one of philanthropy. And we go and we try and get sponsorships, but we don't look at them as partners. And that was the beginning of the start of my thoughts that is we'll talk about a little later.
So, now I know you're not saying this, obviously, but for the sake of, devil's advocate, sounds to me like you're saying that 2025 is upon us. We don't really have a need for membership associations anymore.
Whoa.
You see, this is where the cart goes before the horse.
Yeah, this is what he does, Matty. This is what he does.
This is the cart before the horse. This, if it doesn't look like what we have, we don't need it. And my perception on this one is what we're doing today is we're trying to answer a problem. Associations are trying to answer a problem. 60, 100 years ago, the problem was there's nowhere to convene, there's nowhere to communicate for community, there's no publishing methodology. We'll have to invent it all ourselves, and we'll charge for membership.
Yeah.
I saw a fantastic LinkedIn post that said, if your association closed down tomorrow, who would open it and why would they bother?
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, what an amazing way to look at things. The way I was looking at it was, if I was starting today, what would I do?
Yeah.
But it leads us to the same question, which is, what am I trying to achieve? What problem am I trying to solve?
Well, and there's, I think the LinkedIn post that you mentioned, it reminds me of the most concerning element of associations over the years, and that's the association arrogance. The arrogance of necessity, the arrogance of, that we're the only ones that can do this, that our club, to your point, this community that you've created over time and history is really a club, and you create it through an exclusivity. Exclusivity is somewhat of gives it its value, and to be exclusive, you have to somewhat keep others out. So what's moving forward? I mean, we could go on and on about the last 100 years of associations and what's wrong and how they've gotten to where they are. I mean,
I think it's just context, though, Elisa. I think it's just context.
Features? Yeah.
So, going back to this idea of narrative analysis, what does it have over key indicators? Is it has mission. Key performance indicators have operations. They don't have mission. So in other words, you could be doing the wrong thing well or improving the wrong thing, but you would never know. So the question is what do we have to do? What do we have to do to produce the same results as we wanted 100 years ago, which was make our members more impactful? That's really what we exist for. We exist in the three pillars model to deliver impact to the world and to indirectly deliver it through them to the world. And the question is today, what does an association have? Because it does have, and it has certain very special characteristics that allow it to move into the future. The question is, are we going to allow it? Let me give you a.
Who's we? Are we going to allow it? Who's the we?
I think it's really the associations. I think, are the associations going to change?
So is it the staff? Is it the board? Is it the membership? I mean, again, I don't know who this magical we is that's holding us back from ourselves.
Well, if you have an active and effective board, you talk to them. But I'm afraid that what we see in a lot of cases, instead of the board leading the staff, and especially leading the CEO, I think in a lot of cases we have the CEO leading an ineffective board. And I know Andrew and myself have talked about this many times.
That's a different podcast.
the question of, and I'll seed you with another podcast, which is staff have to have a CAE. What do boards have to have? And that's a big question, is board effectiveness. So the fact that you ask who should be doing it, it really depends. If we're going to be honest, it should be the boards. If they're not able, it should be the staff. But the problem with it is the whole model is built on this 3 pillars. And as I mentioned before, these are very strong silos. That if you pull your car up in front of the average association and you park in the parking lot, it depends which third of the company, which third of the building you park in front of, depends what you're going to find, because you could go into the membership silo and it has nothing whatsoever to do with the knowledge silo. And the knowledge silo has nothing whatsoever to do with the conference cycle, silo. So these, so you ask, so going forward. So let me give you a visual, something to think about. I want you to think about an association as the wheels of a mountain bike and the pedals of a mountain bike, especially the rear wheel. If we imagine that the rear wheel of a mountain bike, the one that has all the gears on it, that around its outside on the tire, there's all the players. That's where all the players of the ecosystem sit. You have government, you have academia, foundations, industry, associations. All the different players are around that back wheel. Now, where do you find associations usually? You usually find us off to one side. We're usually like where the pedals are. We're quite remote from our ecosystems, and we're connected by this very thin chain. And that's how we interact. We pull people out of the ecosystem, we educate them, and we plop them back in again. This is this indirect. Now, associations have an amazing opportunity of positional power. If they decide to move themselves from under the pedals to the middle of the back wheel, where all the power is, and connect to the outside of their ecosystems through the spokes, which are members, they are then central to an ecosystem that doesn't have very good communications. No ecosystem is well connected. No ecosystem can solve its own problems. No ecosystem, competitors compete, governments regulate, but they don't come together. And if we can move ourselves in 2024, 2025, 2026 to the middle, we can take on a new role. And that role will allow us to connect people as connectors. We can convene the right people at the right time. I was talking to somebody the other day who deals with public transport. And at the end of this spring, they brought together all of the subway and underground train operators worldwide to talk about the fact that everybody got flooded, and they want to fix it. Real problems, not education, not knowledge, not convening, not community, but real problem solving. How the heck can we solve a real problem, which is every year we get flooded? And those sorts of problems, how can associations help with, why associations need to step up and help fix the problem with AI and the governance of it and the potential problems with it. That's not something an industry that one industry player or two industry players can deal with themselves. And that's something that's the role that we need to be.
So you're arguing that, or you're recommending
as well,
that there's a role here for associations to be far more hands-on in their communities, however they define their community, so that when they talk about outcomes, being outcomes focused, it's tangible community outcomes directly attributable to the association, rather than the association simply being the conduit between the problem and the solution, as it were.
Or at worst, merely claiming that the person that solved it happens to be a member of theirs, when in fact they had absolutely no impact into the solution.
Yeah, I understand.
Well, and to me, this is a cautionary tale, the anecdote that you've given in the bike analogy, because what I keep coming back to is if the association didn't exist, who would notice? And I think we again get sucked into this association arrogance that we're even necessary in the scenario that you've told. The industry
we're very
is
necessary.
better at what
We're
they
very
do.
necessary.
Agencies are better at what they do. And as they've evolved, we have failed to move beyond the 3 pillars or the 4 pillars to be of value in a different way. We don't need to just be better community, better knowledge, better conveners.
That's what I think, yes.
We need to find a different relationship to have with the stakeholders. And again, I think, is our absence even noticeable sometimes? That to me is an important reminder that we can't just exist.
So I'll throw two observations at you that are stark reminders about what we're talking about. Number one is, if I put 5,000 experts in a room, you would really want them to come together and do something big. And we do this every year with our conventions, with our conferences. And I don't want to go on to this subject. I talk about it a lot elsewhere, and I always get sucked down into this. But the idea of legacy conferencing and legacy events, which is you let 5,000, 4,000, 3,000, 250, whatever size your association is, usually represents the core and the expertise of your ecosystem. And you let them all in the room and you didn't get them to solve a problem. That's shocking. Right,
we bring them to spoon feed them content instead of utilizing them as the experts they are.
Right.
Or to sell them stuff on the trade show floor, or to put sponsors up at the podium.
So there's the other shocker is we have a membership, which we call, we have a membership list, but but that's also wider, compared to the people that don't actually join. And we have these 10,000, 5,000, 10,000, 15, 20, some of them, some have 500,000 members. And all we use the network for is to try and sell membership to and to try and sell content. We never use it the other way around. We never go out and say, we could use this. And this is why, sorry, I have this in my head when I talk about putting ourselves in the center of that back wheel. And I think it's what really drives me is the fact that we have an absolute value that nobody else has. We have these huge networks, 20,000 spokes that go out feeding around the world, around the ecosystem, and we could utilize that for good. We could utilize that for research, for data collection, whatever you want. And our ecosystems, they could come to us. Ecosystems, the players in our ecosystems have to go and create these networks every time they want to do a piece of work. We own these massive networks, and all we do is we sell them membership and try and sell them content. And it could be doing so much more. And trying to sell them content is difficult. Trying to sell them membership is even harder. And if we would actually ask them to contribute the other direction, please help us with this piece of research, and then we use that as a service to our industry clients, we could create, the value we create is so much bigger by charging our
industry clients just go directly to the membership. I mean, these lists,
because they don't have the network, and we do, and it's crazy. And we could go out and we could wipe membership off the table, because we could have contribution. In other words, if you're going to take part in a piece of research once a year, what's your value? $200, $300, $400? Yeah, boom. There's your membership gone. I can get that money. I'll get that from industry now. And it's the way of thinking about turning ourselves inside out. Every conversation that you can have about associations is either turn it upside down, turn it inside out, or mirror it. Every one of them, almost every conversation you have. And this is the inside out network is the value that we bring. And nobody else has that. And nobody else has this bringing together of thousands of experts. Well, they do now, because for-profits are realizing the value of it. But so I'm not sure I would call it arrogance, but there is a certain cachet to certain associations, and I think associations should play off that. But they have to embrace the idea of value, the idea of problem solving, the idea of revenue from within their ecosystems. And you know what? Within your ecosystem, you have foundations. Use your foundations to fund yourself. We've just got to move away from this idea of membership. And you hear people say, "Oh, nobody buys membership anymore." Spotify, Netflix. Don't tell me they don't buy they buy membership. People buy memberships all the time, but they buy them where there's value. And you hear people saying all the time, millennials, they don't want to work for big companies. They want to be independent. But what did the millennials bring to us? They brought to us the idea of corporate responsibility. It used to be corporations told us how we should behave. We bought product because we wanted to be like whatever that picture they sold to us. Now it's on its head. Told you, everything's on its head. Now customers are telling corporations what they expect them to do if they want me as a customer. And I think millennials can look to associations as a place where they can have impact, because that's the one thing that millennials lack. Is they have all the independence, they have all the gig, they have their gig economy, they have everything, but they don't have the power of numbers, which we used to have in the big companies that we work for. I work for HP, I work for Triple E, all big companies, and with that came power, and you could be noticed. I'll give you an example. EASL, who is the European Liver Association, wanted to make an impact at their conference. So they said, what we're going to do is we're going to make a mobile blood testing laboratory. So they got one of these mobile laboratories, and they skinned it in their colors, and they had it going up and down the area where their conference was going to be, because they wanted to serve the people who didn't come in for blood tests. Now, after this was done, and the impact was made, the local government asked them, can we keep this going? This is really serving people that don't come to the hospitals. And we're not talking about people who didn't come to hospitals because they didn't have cars. We're talking about people who wouldn't come to hospitals because they didn't want to be judged. Big emotional and issues. And they said, and afterwards, not only did they have this feedback from the government, local government, but they also had feedback from their members, which is, this is what we live for. Doing this kind of thing is what we live for. We have no voice because we're nurses in hospitals. We don't have money. We don't have influence. But through the association, we do have influence. And that's something that the millennials, as much as we say that we have no value to millennials, we have a massive value to millennials because we give them voice.
I 100% agree. I completely agree. I think
Andrew doesn't know any millennials. Come on.
Well, apart from when I look in the mirror in the morning, what are you talking about?
I know, but you're more of a greatest generation spirit.
You cheeky bugger. Honest to God. I do agree, though. I think, and I think, we spend an awful lot of time talking as consultants in the sector. We spend an awful lot of time talking about and encouraging invention, creativity, innovation. And we talk community. But actually, I think the way that you're, as you describe it, the inside out, I think that represents a significant reversal is the wrong word, a significant step forward in the evolution of the association, a much needed step forward. I completely agree. And certainly, we spend an awful lot of time as entities, as businesses, talking about our effectively talking about our consumer base. How are we going to generate new members, new engagement, etc.? And you're absolutely right. Churning out the same old, whether it be upside down, inside out, is getting us by and large nowhere. And nowhere quite slowly. So I think, you know, with the drivers around social responsibility, sustainable development, the context, the global context in which we're now working, as both public, private, for-profit, non-profit organizations and businesses, I think there is simply no excuse for associations to be talking in this, and not just talking, but to be delivering action that is generative and transformative. And what you describe is genuinely transformative. And certainly, you know, it certainly made me think when, you know, later this week, I'm actually walking in with one organization in London to strategic plan. And I'm thinking, actually, this has given me some serious, a really nice platform here. So I'm going to steal all your ideas.
This is what he does, Matty. This is what he does.
And I'm going to give you no credit until it goes wrong, and then it's all your fault.
Right.
But
and I'll be back next week for the next round, right?
That's right, absolutely. But no, I love it. Elisa, what do you think?
Well, I too like the inside out approach. And it's interesting, Matty says every take we have on what should be different, what's not working, what is possible, does seem to be quite dramatic in the change from the three pillars that we've been built on. But you know, I still struggle. Associations do a lot of talking about foresight and change and innovation and yada yada yada, and I'd like to see some action. In 2024, Andrew and I committed to this year being about doing something. And Matty, your platform for this and the outline that you've given gives me not only motivation to look at things differently, but to push for more action. So I'm going to throw Andrew on my bicycle handlebars, and we are going to ride into the future, and continue to hold associations accountable.
You're so Generation X. You're so Generation X. Honestly, you may as well say, "Going to stand on my stump pegs." All right.
Oh my gosh! All right, we have to go. I've promised people 30 minutes plus or minus, and Andrew is taking this. Taking this in the wrong direction. I'm sorry, Matty. We don't usually fight in front of the children.
We always fight in front of the children. We always fight. But thank you. I found it compelling, and I certainly am going to take this away with me when I walk into the space with various clients from now on.
All right. And I'm not putting you on my bike at all. I'm leaving you on the sidewalk, Andrew. Matty, you get on the handlebars. You can get in the basket, and let's ride.
I'm on a scooter because I'm millennial.
Oh, all right. Until next time, put your members and your mission first.